It is the 5th unit of the Neon Genesis Evangelion collaboration of 2023. It is EVM04 Mark.06, with the kit of Kernel, Ghost, Power Hammer, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Blowbeat, which ignores a percentage of the target's resist stats when attacking the enemy. Now, as the 5th model in the series, the Mark.06 is definitely not standing down or letting anyone else show him up when it comes to the kind of raw firepower that it has currently at its disposal. And while it may be Metaforce reliant, that certainly is nothing to sneeze at and doesn't seem to be something it particularly cares for. Kernel is a support-based skill that provides conceal to the entire allied side, but also provides a stack of stealth to self, which means that while the allies do get a boost to their evade and can graze one attack to negate pierce damage, the Mark.06 itself will be untouchable for its entire next turn unless it's being targeted already. This also means that while in stealth, it does allow the Mark.06 to bypass any shields that are in play to attack exactly who it wants without anyone getting in the way to intercept it. Ghost is a skill everybody knows and loves when it comes to looking for high-end nuking skills, and with that being said, it is a conventional and very powerful melee-based attribute skill with a damage bonus relative to the user's charge gauge. So the higher of a charge you have, the more bonus damage you deal. And on top of that, Ghost also packs Defense Ignore when fully capped, which means you'll be hitting raw damage and the highest output possible every time you make use of the skill. Left Arm of Power Hammer is a more conventional and somewhat more balanced melee skill compared to what Ghost packs, and while it does have the times 1.5 damage bonus that, say, Power Rifle or so on have, it is a full AoE type skill, which means it will be damaging all 4 parts of the target equally and spread the damage. Now that means, of course, if there are fewer parts, say 3 or 2, it will spread the damage across those. But while normally AoE skills I tend to grade a little bit on the harsher end, Power Hammer definitely can make itself as an exception because it does offset a lot of that missing damage from spreading it with that damage bonus of the times 1.5 as long as his legs are intact. On the topic of his legs, much like other models of collaboration, Mark.06 certainly is not letting anyone show him up either, with some very impressive stats across the board. With a mobility of 877, he is definitely going to be packing the high base speed that any biped leg is in need of, especially when it comes to coverage across most terrains as one of the most well-rounded. An evade of 1402 is really nice too, as that means he will have a much easier time dodging or grazing a lot of low success attacks. And with a melee resist of 1523 and a shoot resist of 1355, the Mark.06 definitely showcases himself a lot better than, say, Unit 0, 01, 02, or 05, as this means he can definitely hold his own up close and personal or at long range without anyone crippling him or taking him down too easily. His armor pool also is very good too, with a head HP at about 4250, his right arm at about 4100, his left at about 4000 even, and his legs at about 3800. So very healthy armor pool right there, and very good resist stats as well when it comes to keeping damage low. So it will be particularly difficult to knock this guy out quickly once the fight does begin. That being said, as a pure set score, I do honestly have to rate the Mark.06 a very solid 7.5 out of 10. Now, compared to most other models where I would rate them at, say, an 8 or an 8.5 for their good coverage, that's kind of where the Mark.06 falls just a little bit short. And compared to, say, Unit 2 or Unit 1, which have very good synergy with their own parts, Mark.06 can have good synergy if you make it work, but when it comes to having Ghost on there being Metaforce reliant, that's kind of where one of his big flaws are. Now granted, with Kernel, he does provide more of a supportive role to kind of help keep damage low and minimize between himself and his allies, but Power Hammer is definitely not going to be the skill of choice when it comes to maintaining that Metaphor sustain that's required for Ghost. So the Mark.06 can make it work, but just know going in that Ghost is definitely not going to hit as hard as it should the first, say, 2 or 3 uses until you get a charge up and going. Or unless you have someone on the team that can help him comp that, such as, say, with Charge Plant. As mixed parts, on the other hand, I do have to rate him significantly higher at an 8.5 out of 10. given that even though together his parts do have some rather strange synergy with each other, apart they can be made very, very useful, even with both his arms being heavy. Kernel is a relatively niche support part. You probably won't see that super often compared to, say, Precognition from Unit 02, or even something as simple as Hypercrept or Dominion, but it's still a very good skill if you want to keep the damage low on your allied side and keep the user itself particularly untouched. Ghost and Power Hammer, really can't say enough about them as very solid melee skills you really can't ever go wrong with, even if both of them leave you wide open with no dodge and no defend on your cooldown. But of course, with high power comes also a high punish while in cooldown, which also is fully expected. Legs are also very good too, really can't go wrong with using them on male or female sets, which makes using the Mark 6 very flexible. And on the topic of flexibility, much like other models of the collaboration, the Mark 6 is also a gender N-type bot, which means you can use his parts on male or female bots freely and interchange them depending on the situation.